we mentioned the term generative AI, this stuff like DALI 2, Stability AI, Jasper is a generative AI tool we have mentioned. And what these tools do is create. They create writing, they create text, they create art, they create video. We've seen some really cool high profile examples with Meta's Make a Video tool, OpenAI's various GPT-3 and DALI 2 platforms. However, what we saw this past week is a massive amount of funding funnel into a couple key companies in this space. So the two that really jumped out to us were Stability AI, which is the maker of Stable Diffusion, which is the open source generative AI platform that has been very closely compared to DALI 2 and is being used, I bet, in a lot of these other tools that we've discussed. They just raised $101 million in funding from some of the top venture capital firms in the world to turn this product, this platform, into open source generative AI for anyone who wants to use it. Universities, individual consumers, other companies, which I want to circle back to in a minute, given our talk about people needing to move fast. People are already building things using Stability AI's platforms. And the funding puts them at over $1 billion in valuation. And not only that, it is led by a couple massive VC firms, one of which Lightspeed Ventures, who has one of the biggest tech VC firms, I believe, in the world, published a post as well about it saying, look, this is actually one of the most unique open source AI products we've seen. The user growth is wild and just like it's an exponential upward trend. There's a lot of success here, but I thought it was also really interesting that they also said we would be remiss in not acknowledging that Stable Diffusion has also generated controversy around some of these generative AI tools. There's a lot of controversy and talk about who owns what, who owns which copyrights to which images. And Lightspeed Ventures basically said, we're very, very aware of the impact we're having here. However, the market is moving so fast. Essentially, the technology is moving so fast that
we don't care.
Yeah, right.
Basically what it says.
So we've got on one hand that happening, and then on the other hand, Jasper, a tool with which we're quite familiar and use somewhat, they just announced $125 million Series A round at a $1.5 billion valuation. And
Series A. Stress it was a Series A.
Yes.
First round, basically, outside of the seed. So
yeah. Unreal. And this is again an AI powered writing and art tool that we're using in marketing for various applications. It could be used for blog posts, emails, a lot of different marketing assets. This is a tool that has a direct application to marketing. And it just raised a monster round, and it comes from some of the top VC firms in the world. The money flowing into these two companies is jaw dropping to me.
Yes, I have so many thoughts on this. So the language AI, the writing tools, is such a natural entry point for so many marketers because we all write. So I feel like, when I was at the Marketing Profs event last week, there was probably like 350 or 400 B2B marketers. And I would venture to say that the majority of them were probably not early adopters of AI. They're not racing out ahead and trying all these AI tools. And yet, when I gave my talk and I showed like language AI tools and I showed the image generation tools like Stability AI is enabling, what I've found is I think we're approaching or at a tipping point in the understanding and adoption of AI in marketing because tools like this, the generative AI tools, are accessible to everyone. So I can give a keynote about AI and I can show DALI, and you can go get DALI while you're in the talk and your 15 free credits. And by the end of that talk, you can have been creating images in DALI, and you can go show your family at Thanksgiving dinner. It is like, let me show you this crazy thing it does. Language, same thing. You can go get Jasper right now and you can start playing around with it. You can play around with their image generation tech. The tech, this generative AI tech, is so accessible that people actually can experience AI and understand it. 2, 3 years ago, we couldn't do that. And I think that's what's causing this tipping point. And so, like, again, this is just like last Thursday, I was giving this
Mhm.
marketing props talk. And then all of a sudden, you fast forward like 3 days and we're getting 101 million in funding. I'm sending our investors and like people, and it's like, holy cow, like, look at this. Like, this is what we're talking about. And then, like, this morning I wake up and I'm like, oh, geez, Jasper announced 125 million yesterday. And I was just having a conversation with another language AI company yesterday about how competitive this space is and how hard it is to pick winners. I had somebody last week that was looking at language AI tools ask me like, which is the best one? And I was like, "Psh, ask me again in 3 months. I'll probably give you a different answer." And someone literally said, like, is it Jasper? Is it Copy.ai? Is it Writer? Is it GoChart? Like, who's the winner? And I'm like, there's no winner yet. Like, it is an absolute arms race right now. It's who's can raise the most money, who can recruit the best AI researchers. Like, it's really hard to say who the winner is at this point. But I think we might have touched on it last week, but I mean, there's $1 trillion companies sitting here right now. Like,
Mhm.
someone is building $1 trillion generative AI company. It might be one of these two that we're talking about right now, but this space is on fire right now. And it is, as people who live in this space, it's really, really hard to keep up. The the one thing I want to kind of like, I kind of made a snide remark as we were going through about like their thing, and I want to I want to add some context to my snide remark. So I love the Lightspeed Ventures kind of editorial about why they did this investment,
Mhm.
but I want to read this for a second. So this is straight from what's the guy's name? I don't know. Gaurav Gupta, I think, is Lightspeed, one of the partners at, I assume, one of the partners at Lightspeed.
Yes.
So it says our thesis for generative AI starts with the belief that storytelling, whether it be about a person, business, or idea, is fundamentally what makes us human. My radar went up at that. Okay, it makes us human. But telling a good story is not easy. It requires content creation, whether it be text, images, video, audio, or a presentation. Today, the process of content creation remains manual and difficult. Very true, but also it's an art. So people who do this love that they do this and enjoy the manual process of creating. So I don't know that we're solving for writers and designers who actually like the fact that that's what they do. But I continue. So, quote, generating a beautiful image representing a story not only requires imagination, but artistic skill, knowledge of tools like Adobe Photoshop, and years of work and training. Generative AI has the power to reduce much of this manual, quote unquote, manual work and make it more accessible to all. We believe generative AI has the power to fundamentally change almost every creative endeavor, whether it be entertainment, media, advertising, education, science, and art. Ultimately, Stability's vision is to bring similar capabilities to text, video, audio, and more. So, I put this on LinkedIn and somebody almost immediately was like, well, that's a pretty techie kind of view of things. Like that, let's just, yes, it's going to harm all these people and like devalue what they do, but all these other people who can't do what they do will now be able to do it.
Mm.
It's basically what that says. It's like, okay, so
Mhm.
the non-designers, non-writers, don't worry, like you're going to be able to be a writer and designer. And I'm not saying this is good or bad. I'm not like presenting this as I think what they're doing is wrong. I don't at all. I just think it's a reality that people aren't ready for. And we talk about this over and over again, that the designers and the writers, and you and I are both writers by trade, have no clue how advanced this stuff is and
Mhm.
where it's going in the next like 6 to 12 months. They are not ready for it. And I appreciate that Lightspeed and Stability are at least acknowledging this.
Yep.
But my general sense talking to a lot of these companies, a lot of these people is like, yeah, it kind of sucks, but here we go. Like we're going forward anyway. Like we're building the tech. We're able to build it. We're going to build it. And if we don't release it, they're going to release it. So we're just going to just move forward and let's figure it out as we go and pick up the pieces along the way. And so I just think it's really important that people understand this stuff's happening with or without you. You don't have to
Yep.
like it. We don't have to like it, but it's happening. And there's literally an arms race for this. And it's a funding arms race right now.
Yep.
But hundreds of millions, and especially at a series A, is a lot of money. Um, and I've talked to the people not at Stability, like we know the people at Jasper, pretty well. We follow them closely, follow Copy.ai and Writer. And Hyperwrite, and all these GPT-3 powered techs. And man, this stuff's real. Like, and it's, and then maybe we'll do more on this next week, but I was just sharing with you, like I was playing around with the Google AI test kitchen
Mhm.
where you can play around with Lambda, which is their large language model. So GPT-3 is a large language model that enables AI writing. Lambda does the same. And man, is that stuff good. Like it's wild. Like, I don't know. Again, having lived this space for 10 years now and researched it, and we've been writing about it and exploring it, I feel like more has happened in the last like 60 days than it happened in the previous 9 years, like in
I
terms of
couldn't agree
advancements of the
more.
space.
It's unreal, and it's hard to communicate to people just how fast that is moving
Yep.
and what that means. I mean, one thing that did strike me about, so we had talked about Stability's funding and then Jasper getting funding, and there's actually a bit of overlap between the investors in each one pretty naturally.
Yeah.
One of the top firms leading Stabilities is also a follow-on for Jasper. But what also struck me is you do have companies like, or venture firms like HubSpot's Venture Wing, HubSpot Ventures. The venture firms that are involved here are also involved with companies like Twitter, Shutterstock, Landing AI. I mean, that's probably pretty um, standard, I would say, in this space, but they also shout out some investors who I assume were kind of in their in the seed round for Jasper or have
Yeah.
been advisors, and people like David Cancel, who founded Drift, which is a huge conversational AI company in marketing and sales. There's Amjad Masad, who's actually a founder and CEO at a company called Replit, which is an online coding environment that I've used a little bit. And they just released an AI assisted coding feature. And then one of the other advisors is Ahmad Mustaq, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, the founder and CEO of Stability AI. So these advancements and these investments are having an exponential effect as they are sharing knowledge. If you can do generative AI in one space, the people that crack the code there can also help someone who wants to crack the code on writing, on coding, on all of these creative and or language based or image based pursuits. I thought that was really, really interesting.
Yeah. And the final thing I'll say here is, you and I for years have debated on our tone when we talk about this stuff, and that we can't push fear. Like we've always made a very conscious effort not to use messaging that creates fear for people. That, we wanted to provide real education and information, be realistic about where we were at, and try and present people with a very logical path forward to figure this stuff out. I'm starting to feel like we don't need to go to fear yet, but we certainly need to up the level of urgency.
Mm,
Like when we see this level of innovation and testing these tools and knowing how good they are and talking to the AI researchers behind these things and knowing what they're working on that's coming next, I just really think creative professionals and agencies in particular, you have to have a sense of urgency to understand this stuff. It truly is going to affect you very, very quickly.
yeah,
And I really want people to go test something out and see it for yourself. Like, don't take our word for it, but go get Dolly, go test Stable Diffusion or Mid Journey on the image side. Go play around with, a language model through Jasper, Copy AI, or Writer, Go Charlie, or keep, any list of these things. It's just really, really important that you see for yourself what's happening in the space.